how would I know that it was a success? Was to meet the challenges, the oppositions, just in with the focus to make things better and to complete the assignment. It's the only way you're going to get success is to set a goal and complete it. You got to navigate through all the ups and downs and barriers or whatever. Sometimes you have to hold up. But while you're waiting, you got other things to do that's going to pull this whole wheel together. And reaching out to Haley and Nikki and pulling in the resources they have. And that's what make us as a team get things done.
Mhm.
And now when I get up and speak about my experience, the ups and downs, the barriers, people that actually work and dictate that policy, they're not just going to hear her, they're going to feel it because it comes from her heart. And she's telling a story. We all tell our little bit of the story,
Mhm.
but then they are the one that's going to see it. They're going to see the results of what we've done. And hey, we are qualified to put it down in paper form, but you can give me a stack of papers to read and I can read it, Corinne, but if it's not in my heart, I'm going to find something wrong with that story because up
Right.
here, I don't get it. I don't
Right.
get it. So that's
Yeah.
why I say all of that to say we are going to be the story and then
Mhm.
they are going to see the story.
I agree with you, Vanessa, that we are the story. And when a good story, it is not a good story if you don't see the passion of the storyteller. For me, and one of the reasons I joined this group, one was to learn more
Me too.
because
Me too.
marketing is not my strong suit, but I know how important storytelling is. You know,
Mhm,
I'm an actor. If somebody
mhm.
writes me a story, I can tell the story passionately, even if it's not mine, right? Because I will make it mine. But what I have been challenged by, even in my own work here in New Orleans, is telling the story. And I get that all the time. So it doesn't happen naturally for everyone. I just want to put that in the universe. When I tell people my story individually about CRA, they're like, why don't I know about that? And what I would love is for this group is to help to figure out how do we get these passionate stories told in a way that more people will see it and embrace it and want to help to advance the work. That's the goal for me.
And
Mm-hmm.
so when I heard what the success looked like, my initial thought was that we're still doing this, right? That we are still willing to be gathered in community, in virtual space, figuring out how to be supportive to one another and ourselves in a way that feels generative and wholesome. Action was in regard to that we're still here. That was honestly it. And then that we're not only here, but we're here in ways that feel wholesome, right? That it's a space that doesn't take from us, but it
Yeah.
gives to us. And that it supports our wholeness. Because, like, as I was listening to each person share that the work they do, and that's why I say we hold belonging, dignity, justice, and joy with like an emphasis on joy, because this work can be so depleting, right? Like as Haley was talking, I was like, oh, yeah, I remember the day I stepped away. I remember that day clearly, right? Because if you allow it, it will take everything from you and you will have nothing left. Like you will have nothing left. We now understand what weathering does for people who are in any type of social justice work, right? We understand that the autopsy say for people who do social justice work, every vital organ is almost not chronic, it's almost like doubled in terms of the amount of stress it holds.
Yeah.
Like that's not okay. So like for me, success is that we're here, we're together, we're unified, and that this feeds us, right? That it nourishes us. Um, so So, Corinne, you asked, and I know my answer had nothing to do with this necessary work group, but that is what I was holding um, as Vanessa started speaking. So,
I want to say something about that, Nikki, from cohort 5. We initially had problems in cohort 1, but as you say, believe and be supportive and understanding. But we sat down at the table and we rooted out our problems. We spoke our heart. We spoke our peace. We broke up in groups and we became a cohesive unit. I really enjoyed it. There were ups and downs, especially for me. And I don't mind being me. I don't mind showing people who I am, crying, the whole 9 yards. I really took everything that we did and whatever they offered to heart. And I think a lot of our other cohort members did as well. But if we had an issue with anything, we were allowed to speak it and we stood on it.
And what Vanessa was saying is right. You know, when there were challenges, since we were in fact the guinea pigs of the, you know, of this process, and there were things happening that we weren't happy with. We figured out how to come together, and support each other, right? And lift each other up. And uh, the weathering that you talked about, you know, like we got enough stuff that we have to deal with on our own, and systems that are supposed to not be ostensibly supposed to not be oppressive. Like we need to figure out how to navigate those systems and dismantle those systems, and we have to support each other in making that happen. So if there's well, not if, there is always a way with creativity to figure out how to do multiple things at the same time. I think that it is a valuable conversation for us to have.
I just want to maybe highlight and underscore that when I said we kind of got shut down, I was talking about the alumni network. So Coral 5, we had our experience was our experience. Because our experience was so unique in terms of COVID, and we were really searching for connection, they allowed us to enter the alumni group while we were still going through the leadership group. And that's what I was referring to. So there were people, was it only Cultural Health who was in the alumni network? There was people from cohorts 1 through 5, but was it only Cultural Health, Corinne? Do you remember that?
Yeah. Yeah.
It was
And
only
as
Cultural
far
Health.
as
Yeah.
as far as this work is concerned, our Culture of Health Network, which is us, just us,
Yeah.
our work is only for our 200 folks.
Yes.
CHA has
Oh,
the conference,
okay.
the contract with Robert Wood Johnson, and that's for like the other 5 programs. Just so we're clear.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
So that's what
yeah.
I
Well,
was
that makes
referring
life
to, though.
easier.
Yes. Well, but that's the thing that comes up for me is that like we tried, and as cohort 5 people, we came into an alumni network that was with people from cohorts 1 through 4, and we kind of just came in like eager, like super eager and searching for connection and community. And we entered a space that I don't think any of us were prepared for. And then as it continued to evolve, eventually Robert Wood Johnson then um, no longer made funding available and said, "We'll pause until we decide on something new." And so that's been a bit of a pause from what was to what is. And like I said, not to bring too much of that in, but Troy, one of the things that you said is that I feel like we were figuring it out.
Mm.
And that to me was the sadness. Because as we know in community work, it's not straightforward, right? Like you got to go around all kinds of turns and bends. And sometimes you got to start right back at the beginning. But what I know to be true, I also do a lot of place-based work. What I know to be true is like giving up isn't an option because it's rooted in survival. And like as a species, we're taught to survive. And so that for me was the sadness, is that it felt like we were on the precipice of figuring out something really critical that could have been helpful to anyone who does justice focused work in terms of bringing together diverse perspectives. And how do you have conflict in ways that's generative, as Vanessa was saying, that's heart bearing. And it felt like we were really figuring it out with this group of folks.
Second thing I want to say, I too was like, wait, is this the group I signed up for? And what I realized is that throughout our emails, the name of this group changed. It did. So it was referred to as structuring how we work together, as well as structuring how we share our work together. And that one little word changes things, at least for me.
Right. That's right. It does.
And I think that
That is entirely my fault.
okay.
Yeah, that is you all are right. You just like, you know, you didn't imagine it. That is entirely my fault. excuse me, I have a K9 associate. And it is because I misread the notes from our first convening when we met together in Portland.
So which
Because
is it?
I thought it was structuring how we'll work together, and that's why I wanted to be all over it.
Yeah, that's
And
what
then
I thought too.
as I read the report and like took more time with it, it's like structuring how we will share our work together. I said, okay. And so I started to emphasize that in the preceding documents, but I never had a chance to explain that. So I apologize. That is entirely my fault.
No,
know.
I mean, even in I'm looking at, because I was like, what is wrong
Yeah.
with me? So I went and I just looked back at the report, and even the report, in the same slide, it says work together and then structure how we share our work together.
Yep. Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I guess it can be both. I'm really interested in like doing kind of the like behind the scenes, figuring out how we all leverage each other and like how we actually do this work, like what platforms we're going to use, what technology we're going to use, how we have our meetings, how this charter works for us. I feel more interested in that, but I do think it's similar because we also need to know what everyone's doing. We need to know what each other's
Right.
skills are. You know, I really, really loved at a few of the convenings, we would have a whiteboard and it'd be split in half, and it would be what skills do you have to offer and what things do you need help with. I don't think those were ever followed up on. But like that was really a great idea, and like can we do that, and can we have it, you know, be something that's dynamic and evolving as we change and as we grow and as we, you know, move around the world. Yeah, I don't know how we do both of these things in this work group, but I think we can.
And we were organized with the state in 96 and became tax exempt in 97. So it's been like 20 some odd years that we've been writing grants and doing community work, which is why federal government asked us to help some of the other communities that was here. So we changed our motto to do that. And along these years, you know, we found that we would have an event, and after the event, nobody leaves. And that includes the people that participated. And then, you know, other people have this same model, but that's been our guiding light for years. What worked, what didn't work, and what we can do better. And the lessons learned from that. That is the main thing of anything that we do. What worked, what didn't work, and what we can do better. And Haley and Nikki, you know, I think you guys could, well, hey, let me put something to that of what I saw. And then there you have a chart and you build things and say, let's try this. And that's what I was referring to about the different disciplines, because when we were at Portland, we had different disciplines from different cohorts. And so what you're saying is this is only for cultural health leaders. It's not for the other disciplines like, you know, interdisciplinary and clinical scholars. Are they a part of this, or they're not? Or they have their own?
Let me put it this way. We are way ahead of the other programs in terms of having organized and met again and coming up with a charter and our priorities.
Okay.
And so the CHA has told us that they're kind of looking at us as the model to help the others.
Okay.
So that being said, our focus is culture of health.
Okay.
Because otherwise we're getting way out too far. And, you know, clearly we have stuff internally that requires our focus and our attention. So just to clarify, CHA's big contract with RWJF is for all the programs, culture of health, IRL, CS, and HPRS. But
they all individual.
We're only committed. Our alumni group is for culture of health leaders.
Okay.
So our universe is like if we had 100% participation, it'd be 198 people. It's really only like about 60 hardcore people, which is excellent, you know.
So are we gonna lose Nikki?
Better not.
Well, I think to what Haley was saying, if we can figure out how to do both ends, then I'm here for it, because there is some relationship between it. But that the reason why I was so interested in structuring how we work together is because, like, in so much of the place-based, community-centered work, we talk about starting coordinates often, right? And recognizing that a way in which you start, if you start on, fragmented soil, then those fragments, not only do they continue to play out in the way in which you grow, they grow too. And so the reason why I was so interested in the structuring how we work is because I was like, what would it look like to create starting coordinates from the beginning that are wholesome, right? Like from the beginning, because I feel like so many of us, the point in which we insert in, like the point from which we intercept into our work, we're already dealing in fragmented systems, right? Right? Like that's where we entered. We entered into chaos and confusion, and now we are trying to rework a thing. And the reason I was like structuring how we work kind of spoke to me is like, what would it mean from the very beginning to hold a set of values and live them right from the beginning? Like, it feels like something that I know I am desperately longing, because 90% of the work that comes to Seek Higher Ground is from a place of something already being, some people say broken, some people say being designed as it was intended. Either way you put it is from an oppressive place. That's where many of us enter our work. And I'm like, damn, wouldn't it be good to, like, you see this meeting pop up on your calendar and be like, oh, this is the place where I get nourished. This is the place where my batteries recharge. And so for me, I've never been in a space where the starting conditions have been honored right from the beginning. And that's why, like, I go back, right? Like, who picked CHA? What was that process? Because all of that stuff, everything's interconnected. So it will eventually show up in the work. And if we don't understand it from the beginning, then unfortunately it does create tensions later. So I think if we can hold both, like Vanessa, to your, like, I know you were asking, like, well, I say, and I'm like, okay, come on, Haley, if we can figure out how to hold the structure piece with the how, then I would be excited. But yeah, I'm so, like, I'm tired, right? Like, I'm in real life tired. I
Can I just respond to what you were saying about this structure piece? Like that so resonates with me, Nikki, because everything you said is 100% correct. And I am feeling such joy in having something discussed that not only feels wholesome and joy bringing, but is also logical. Yeah, and it is logical to start in a way that allows you to continue to be in a space that is nourishing to you, right? How we know from this work how we enter community is really important, and the logical extension of that is how we start a community dictates what that community is going to look like, and that feels more important to me in this moment than how we tell the stories. Because if we don't set it up in a way that allows us to generate the stories, figure out how to share them in an equitable, wholesome way, then we won't do our job as well. So I am changing what I said at the beginning. And I really love the idea of us, at least initially, working on the structure.
The thing that I was going to mention is that, like, if we can think about how to put in place for when there is conflict, that it can be generative. There are models out there that exist around generative conflict. So to your point, Vanessa, when you said, like, oftentimes it just goes, you just carry the conflict, right? It doesn't get resolved. And then eventually it can blow up. And it's like, no, how do you de-escalate on the front end? And not because, like, we want conflict to happen, but we know it's not an if, we know it's a when. Because you can't bring all these diverse perspectives together and not have people with diversity of thought. Like, we don't want everyone kind of coming at it from the same vantage point, but what are the conditions and rules of engagement that right from the beginning that we can honor and model with each other
Mhm.
and experiment with each other so that we can take back to our own work. Like to me, that's why I was like, oh, yes, structuring, because I'm just like, it's a new season. And so wanting to try some new things. So for me, success is that, like, we're all still here, we're still doing it, we're still finding the joy, and we're figuring out respectful ways to engage with each other and to tell the stories in ways that make sense. So,
Perfect.
um,
Beautiful summary.